Well, good morning. I'm glad you're here with us on another Monday Math Day. Today we're going to have lessons on measurement. I'm trying out a new system, so I hope it works better for everyone. I really just want to start off today by thanking all of you, thanking Ohio State University for getting me technology to use in my home so that I can talk with you and give you some ideas. Special thanks to Jessica Linsenberg and Angela Hartz from two of the districts that we work with for helping us out, and also our interns Iris and Bruce and Lacey. So thank you so much for all that you do. I know these are difficult times, but when we can find things to be thankful for, I know it lifts my spirits a little bit. So maybe it'll lift yours too. So today, we're going to talk about measurement, primarily with kindergarten and first grade, but we'll talk also about some possible extensions that I know some of you have multi-age students or children at home, and we'll talk a little bit about how you can use some of these ideas with a multi-age. So it's called differentiating the instruction, but you don't need to know the technical name. It's really just how can we represent or share ideas between the children that are in your house. So right now we're going to start talking about measurement. 11 is subtraction with regrouping, everybody's favorite. And then we're going to do some operations with fractions. Again, operations just means addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, but we'll probably just focus on addition and subtraction today. Perimeter, which is one of those sticky issues for fourth grade in particular, but it's really important for us to get that nailed down. And then this afternoon at 2, I'll be talking about some just general math pedagogical structures. So let's get to work on measurement. So what is measurement, first of all? So when we're talking about kindergarten and first grade, and you can get your state's standards from your state's Department of Education. I'm going to use Ohio's because I'm here in Ohio. So for kindergarten, really what students need to be able to do in a kindergarten measurement standard is they need to be able to sort objects, and they need to be able to compare attributes. Now, when you see this word attribute, that just means something that makes it different or particular. So remember last Monday I had some rocks that I colored green, and I have some that I didn't color, and then I also had some of these pine cone things. Oh, my hair is falling out. And so you can pick anything. Like, this is measurement with kindergarten and first grade is really a lot of exploration. We get in some technical issues more in first grade, but for kindergarten, we just want them to sort by attribute. And all that really means is you can pick many attributes. So if we look at this pile, what are things we could do? We could separate it like this. So if we separate it like this, then and if you are working with your student, your child, and you put down items and they separate it in a way that's not like it wasn't the first thing that you saw, that's great. That's awesome, because then you can do what we talked about last week, which is ask why. So if I was the child and I separated them like this, like you might be thinking, what's wrong? Like, what's wrong with my child? And that's not it. They're just looking at it differently, and that's a cool thing because that's how mathematicians think. So you ask them. Don't assume that you know how they sorted it. Just ask them, oh, why did you put this one here? And then my justification for this would be, well, these are pine cones and these are rocks. Now, a parent or somebody else might have thought, oh my goodness, it's clearly this because there's pine cones, white or regular rocks, and green rocks. But again, just ask your students. Remember we talked about last week that the most important thing that should guide your questions with your children is, how can I, as the teacher, and now that's you, yay, but how can I find out how my student, my child in this case, is thinking about math? You want to really dig into them. Like, and keep asking why. And then they'll start to ask their own why questions. And that's when they start to really, really grow. So you can give students things like this. They could also separate it like this. Then you can also, when you do something, you could say, okay, so I'm gonna put this item down. Can I put it here? Now it's okay for you to do, this is called a non-example. Can I put it here? And your kindergartner might look at you like, what's wrong with mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or Aunt Susie or whatever. But that's okay. You want them to say, no, Dad, that one goes here. And then Dad, you say, well, why does it go there? It's okay to have some wonderment on our part. Like we wonder, it's okay for your child to teach you. So basically, if the child puts it there, then they're teaching you. They're saying, no, Dad, it goes in this one because it's like this one. That's a cool thing. And this is kind of the general ideas about measurement in kindergarten for the identify and classify section of the standards. Let's talk about some other sections of the standards. I'm going to put my tools away. Again, use whatever tools you have in your house. I just happen to live in the woods, so I grabbed some things out in the woods to play with. Remember last week we talked about making your own counters. So if you have counters like this, and students can sort them that way. Another question you can ask them if you think they're ready for it, but they don't really have to be at this point. But which pile has more? So you can talk about the more less in this situation. And then if they do that, they need to count each of those. And that just extends it a little bit more into like the how many more. And that really gets into subtraction, which is what we're going to talk about at 11 o'clock today. So, so these are just some beginning tasks for measurement. And then the next one in kindergarten is like taller, shorter, bigger, smaller, any of those kinds of things. So before you start your lesson with your students or your children, or you can even ask them to try to find things, you can find things just around the house that are taller or shorter. So taller, shorter, I'm going to put them this way because most children will start at this end. But just any two comments or any two things that you have, we can say that this one is longer than this one. We could say this one is longer than this one. But again, find anything you want from around your house where you can look at longer, shorter, taller, shorter, any of those kinds of situations. Those are helpful to your students. And it also might be really good for them to just go around the house and try to find their own taller, shorter, or longer, shorter things and bring them to you. Now remember, a teacher's job is really to set the task. So we set the task so that the students can dive into it and really, really learn about it. So set the task. Find something that is the same type of thing. So we could also use markers. So I have these two markers, and which one is longer than the other? So this again is kindergarten math with measurement. Now one of the things we have to remember with kindergarten is, so they are very literal, as I'm sure all of you at home know. But if you they might just set these things down, and because this one comes up higher than this one, they might call that one. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with your child. It just means we need to talk about how we measure. So we measure from the same spot going straight out. So the how we measure part is important too. This again is in kindergarten. So we're really just talking about some of the big ideas about measurement in kindergarten. But now let's look at some ideas for first grade. So first grade is really more about actually measuring. So but not measuring necessarily with the tool that we're used to measuring with, which is a ruler. So we that will come later. But first, you can measure using a ruler if you want to at home. But for first graders, they have to be able to measure things by what's called iterating lengths. All that means, iterating lengths, is something end to end. So if I wanted to measure this marker, but I wanted to measure it in something that I have around the house. So again, I got some stuff out of my sewing kit, and I have these safety pins. You can use whatever you want. Seriously, it doesn't matter. But remember, for kindergartners and first graders, one of the big ideas is that we have to start at the end and then go end to end all the way to the other end. So your student, if you don't give them guidance, and it's okay to not give them guidance the first time. You learn a lot about what your students are thinking by not giving them a lot of guidance. Just say, okay, how many safety pins long do you think this marker is? Well, they might go like this, especially if you give them a lot of safety pins. They might go like this. Now again, that doesn't mean, oh my gosh, what's wrong with my child? It just means they're playing with these ideas right now. So if we have this, if they do that, we can discuss, well, are you counting this as a safety pin and this as a safety pin? And what's the difference between the two? So looking at differences between tools is a really good thing. So then keep questioning. Look at my questioning video if you forgot how to do some of those questionings. But iterating lengths just means that it's going side by side, end to end down here. And this is probably 3.5. Almost a kindergartner or first grader might say almost 4. But this is the structure. This iterating length is end to end, so that you can use that end to end idea to be able to measure. Now, another thing to think about with first grade is actually, this could be for both first grade and kindergarten. So for first grade and kindergarten, you can do a scavenger hunt. So let's say you have a kindergartner, and kindergartners measure with tools so that they use. So maybe you could say, okay, I want my kindergartner to find, let's say, let's do I Spy first. So I Spy, as the parent or caregiver, you would say, I spy something that is 10 safety pins long. And then the student's job, your child's job, is to go around the room and find something that's 10 safety pins long, or whatever you're using. If you're using a marker, one that's 10 markers long. So again, the teacher just provides the task. The student is a worker. And if you challenge your child to find something that's 10 paper clips long or 10 safety pins long, they'll spend some time doing that. And then what you can do is bring in some of your other children. So let's say you have some children that are in 4th grade, and you say, okay, I want you to find something that's 10 of, let's say your child Shannon found something, it was 10 safety pins long. All right, Shannon found the 10 safety pins long one. Now, 4th grader, I want you to find one that's 10 times as long. And so then you can incorporate all the other grades into the class that you're teaching, or the child that you're teaching at the moment. So I Spy is a good way to do it. You can also do scavenger hunts. So I'd like you to find something that's one paper clip long, something that's 2 paper clips long, or something that's more than that paper clips long. It's all just like in fun. So that task, then your child will be actually actively learning, moving, getting up, moving around, actively learning. Incredibly important for students to have a perception of these concepts as something that's interesting and exciting. So measurement is one of those really cool tools and topics that you can use all around the house. So if you have some ideas for some measurement activities for other people's children too, that would be awesome. I wanted to show you this little trick that I didn't even know. My husband shared it with me. But if you don't have a ruler, so once you start getting older in measurement for children, they need to actually use common units. First grade and kindergarten are not common units, so They're just everyday items that you want to measure things with. But if you have, and I guess a lot of people don't have dollar bills now either because we all use plastic. But here's the cool thing. So if you need to measure something, a dollar bill is 6 inches long. So we can measure things by dollar bills if we want an exact inch measurement. So it would be kind of cool too, if you have some dollar bills around the house. I know a lot of people don't have cash, but if you do, to get things and say, okay, let's find something that's $4 bills long. And then what you can do, knowing that a dollar bill is 6 inches, then you can ask your third grader or your fourth grader, okay, if it was $4 bills long, how many inches is that? And then here's the important part, stay quiet. Because if you don't stay quiet, then what will happen is the student will wait for you to answer the question, and they will learn right away that if they just wait long enough, you'll answer it for them. So don't fall into that trap of doing that. So, but this is another tool that you may have just around the house that you can measure with. One last thing, this is especially for first grade, because first grade, if you remember, we had this game that we played last week. That's the banker's game or the trading game. That's a game that came from the Algebra Project. Algebra Project was founded by Bob Moses, who's a civil rights leader and working now with mathematics and education as a civil right. This task came from the Algebra Project work. We did this last week. If you didn't watch last week's, it was on place value. But you can use the same kind of thing for measurement for first grade. Because in first grade, I'm going to turn it over and just make new categories. But in first grade, they need to know the difference, or they need to know pennies and dimes. Now this is kind of cool because we could use this trading game with pennies and dimes, because how many pennies does it take to make a dime? So we'll do the trading game just like we used to. You can roll a die, you can pick a card for a number, whatever you want to do, and collect your pennies and then trade them in for dimes. And 10 dimes then, even though this is beyond a first grade lesson, you could say, okay, here's $1, and whoever gets to the dollar first wins. So you can play this trading game with money as well, because money and time are also part of measurement skills or measurement tasks, for especially for kindergarten and, well, first grade is measure and time. So I'd love to hear about how you're using some of these ideas at home. Please post them on our Facebook page. So if you have questions, post on Instagram or Facebook. We also have a YouTube channel now, so all of these videos are going to the YouTube channel. Check us out, and I really hope you just have fun with your student at home with measuring. Measuring is one of those skills that everyone needs, so it's easy to find real life applications to it. But it's also one that you can just send your child off to find things and then bring them back and watch how excited they are to show you how long things are, or which one's taller or which one's shorter. So thanks for your time again. Remember, we have another session coming up, and that session is going to be on subtracting with regrouping. And just to give you a little teaser, here's an idea we're going to use. We're going to look at things like this to help us with subtraction with regrouping. So hopefully you're a little bit interested on how we might use something like this. All right, have a fabulous week, and thanks for joining us on Monday Math Day at Ohio State Math Literacy Initiative. Have a great week.